Hello and welcome to another episode of MacStories Unwind. I'm John Voorhees, and I've got Jonathan Reed with me, who's filling in for Federico Viticci. See, I've already forgotten what his name is because he is on vacation. How you doing, Jonathan?
I'm doing great. Enjoying a sunny afternoon in London. Sun in London is always a good time. Got a watermelon drink
That
with
is
me.
good.
It's nice.
Very nice, very nice. We have London weather today. It's cool and rainy here, but I want to dive right in with you because Federico and I on App Stories just the other day did our previews of macOS 26 and iPadOS 26, and you wrote the watchOS 26 preview on MacStories. So I thought you and I could talk a little bit about some of the highlights of what's coming in watchOS, because I know it's not a huge update, but on the other hand, I think there are a lot of nice little features and refinements and things like that that I think people will enjoy. The one that I'm personally obsessed with is the Workout Buddy, because I think the Workout Buddy is a really good idea that's poorly implemented,
Yeah.
personally. And I do think that this is one of those features that, I mean, and the reason I think it's poorly implemented is because you need your phone along with you for it to work. And that works fine if maybe you're going for a walk and you have your phone in your pocket. But if you're maybe going for a run or sometime, there are a lot of exercise activities you might do where you don't want to have your phone with you, especially if it's a bigger one. And that's really limiting because it would be nice with something like a cellular Apple Watch to have the Workout Buddy just work without the phone nearby. And it's one of those things that I feel like this is just a half step towards what will ultimately happen, which is that the Workout Buddy will be independent and work on the watch. They just need to update the hardware probably at this point.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's an interesting feature. I think one of the things I find fascinating about it is that the voice itself is AI generated, but it's not from someone's recording, but they've trained it off the Fitness Plus trainers. So you get
Yeah.
this slightly uncanny valley situation where the trainers, the workout buddies talking to you, and every now and again you think, oh, that sounds like so and so from Fitness Plus, but it's not them, and it's an
Oh,
interesting sort of thing, and I kind of like it. I've I've been I think it's an interesting idea. I'm not so sure that when I'm doing my workouts, I like people telling me to crush it and talking about what I'm listening to. I like the stats, but the enthusiasm
yeah.
I'm not such a fan of, really. I like it when I'm watching it on the
Yeah.
video for Fitness Plus. I like that enthusiasm because it's like a trainer is with me. But this is like it's not as in detailed as that. So,
Yeah.
but I do know many people who do really like it. I know there's lots of people on our Discord like it. A very Sigmund Judge is a big fan of it. So, I think it's one of those things, as I said in my overview, my preview. You will know, I think, quite quickly whether it's for you or not. Um,
Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
totally
I tend to
agree.
like it. Yeah, I tend to like it. I think it's pretty good. The problem is for me, and maybe this is partly because I've been lazy this summer, and I'm not walking far enough, for instance. But I do keep it on for walks because I want to get a sense for what it's like. And
Mm.
typically, when I'll like walk into town or something from my house, it's a little less than a mile away. And once in a while, Workout Buddy will come in and say something to me. But just as often, more often than not, I hear nothing whatsoever. And part of it, I think, is that for shorter workouts, maybe it kicks in more. It's more likely to kick on in after you end the workout and tell you what you did. But I usually, if I'm like walking to a coffee shop or something, I take my headphones out, so I never hear the Workout Buddy, I guess.
Yeah.
Might be part of my problem.
It does. Interestingly enough, actually, it's quite precisely worked out in terms of when it actually comes in. So it'll do it obviously at the beginning and the end of your workout, and it'll do it at key
Yeah.
milestones, some of which you can define. But also, interestingly enough, if you're doing a specific workout where you're like a hit workout or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
or you're doing a predefined workout that you staged out, and you hit a milestone as you're about to hit a big thing during your workout, the workout buddy won't come in at that point. It's specifically trained to come in only at moments when it's I guess, convenient when, you're in the middle of a walk or in the middle of a recovery period, which is something I learned from Apple. This is something that Apple told me, which I found quite interesting, that they've really thought about how it actually comes in, and you can define that a bit more within the settings. So I think it's an interesting start. I think it's very incomplete, and I think that it will be interesting to see what happens if we get some on-device capabilities in future hardware. Maybe this year, maybe next year. I don't. Which also makes me wonder, when that's happening, is that going to make your watch really hot? I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I've never had a problem with the watch getting hot, even when it's using cellular and stuff like that. But maybe. Who knows?
I'm more thinking of when we use things like the Apple Intelligence on the phone that often warms up your phone. Yeah. Is that going to be the same on the watch, I wonder? But
yeah, it may be. It may be. I don't know. I mean, one of the things that supposedly is coming to the Apple Watch is 5G, and I think that would probably be one of those things that would help along with better chips, to make the Workout Buddy like a standalone thing. We'll see. We'll see. There are companies doing similar things in apps already with the iPhone, so I'm not surprised that Apple's kind of jumping on the bandwagon there. And it's, they have the advantage of, if they can do it, if they can get it to where it's done just on the watch, that's something that others can't do, in which probably they'll get Apple in further trouble with the EU or the Department of Justice. I don't know. Well, we'll see.
I think everything that they do nowadays, I think, is potentially getting them in trouble. Really, it's they're really under the microscope. So, but I like it. And to go back onto I guess the rest of the update, we could. You mentioned at the beginning about it being like a smaller update, and I think that's certainly the case. But I think what I'm starting to get out of it is that, while there's not many big features, and Workout Buddy is their quote big feature, that is their headline feature, and in itself is really still not a huge feature. What I found is lots of little sprinklings of details, the new gesture, the wrist flick gesture, and other things like that, which I've really come to appreciate. I think that while they've maybe not had the resources this year to develop some big new features, I think there's some real thought going in from the team at Apple, some really nice little things here and there, little use cases in the Smart Stack and the wrist flick and things like that are just making just moments during the day a little bit easier, a little bit more useful on your watch. And I think that's I think might be my takeaway so far, which I think is nice to see. It's nice to see they just haven't just left it like they have done with the iPad on so many years, where they've just not done anything. Even if it's a small thing, they're thinking of trying to introduce a little bit here and there, which is good, I think.
Yeah, and I think it'll seem bigger if they do improve the watch in some sort of meaningful hardware way that maybe does things like make Workout Buddy independent of the phone, or maybe have an additional sensor. It doesn't sound like there'll probably be new sensors this year, but you never know, and it'd be nice to see these updates in that context.
Yeah, there is a rumor of some sort of sleep score coming soon for the Apple Watch, whether that's this year or not. But maybe that might be one of those things that happens, that is added in the hardware reveal in the fall, which has happened before. It happened last year with the 1 hertz refresh that wasn't in there, obviously.
Oh, right.
Which was only enabled in the new Series 10 that was released.
Right.
So
right. Very good. Well, let's move on to some picks, Jonathan. I know that you've got a trio of picks, so I will let you go first and tell us a little bit about what you've been watching lately.
Yeah, so I've got a trio of comedy recommendations for everyone today. I've had a close family member who passed away recently, and it's kind of had me feeling all kinds of blue, really. So I've been really combating that by just watching a lot of comedy, some just stuff that's making me laugh, making me really just shaking off those blues with some laughter. And not sophisticated comedy. Often a lot of this stuff has just been the sillier the better, slapstick, all that stuff that's going to really make me gut laugh. And I've been stopping off at some Lonely Island videos from SNL, and which ended up sort of putting me onto rewatching the old Naked Gun movie, because the new
Oh, all right.
one,
I love that movie.
yeah,
Yeah.
1988, the original Naked Gun movie, it's being released last week. It was released last week by one of the Lonely Island members, Akiva Schaffer. And so I watched the original and I've watched the new one as well. And they are both just incredibly funny films.
Hmm.
And I think what I love about them is that they're not really focused on complicated plots. They're not focused on character stories. They're just focused on one thing, which is making you laugh, which is what I needed. Just a barrage of jokes, slapstick, throwaway references, background, jokes going on, and it's just incredibly funny. And that's what's really has really helped me just to laugh a lot. And both of these films, and the new one, deserves a lot of credit with Liam Neeson and Pamela Anderson for actually picking up that baton and realizing
Right.
it's just about making people laugh. It's not about trying to overcomplicate it. It's just good jokes, and there is lots of good jokes. So that's my first of the trilogy of recommendations, which is Naked Gun, the
I
original, and the new one.
I have a question for you. Do you
Sure.
know the origin story of the Naked Gun, where it came from?
Yes, the Police Squad, the TV show.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Which is very short-lived TV show from many, many years ago.
yeah,
Good show if you can still find it somewhere, but it looks pretty dated when you watch
it
it.
does. Another thing that I've also been doing is rewatching old clips from Police Squad, and
Yeah,
it's amazing how they managed to fit that into a TV show. So like it's just dense with jokes and
yeah,
background references and slapstick and stuff like that. Really incredible.
yeah.
So my second on the list is also kind of a returning classic, which is the new season of King of the Hill, which
Hmm.
was, I don't know if did you ever watch did you ever watch King of the Hill back in the day?
I have never watched it.
Never watched it.
No,
Oh, John.
never watched a single episode.
Oh, you should really pick it up. It's a really fantastic show. So
Yeah.
it was one of my favorite shows back in the late '90s, early 2000s, and centers around a
Uh-huh.
man, Hank Hill, who's a very buttoned up, old, man, good old American values, sort of repressed feelings. He sells propane and propane accessories. As he always, what he says, he
Uh-huh.
always talks about his son saying that boy ain't right and things like that. He lives in this small town in Allen, Texas. And
Yeah.
it's about the goings on of him and his, family and friends.
Yeah.
So it went off air in 2010 and they've brought it back. And interestingly, rather than like picking up where they left off and just everyone's the same age and everything, they've actually aged up the characters. So his son Bobby, who was kind of around, I think like 10 or 11, I think, in the original show, he's now 21. He was a bit of a loser back in the day. And interestingly, what they've done is they've made him a successful chef with his own restaurant. So
Uh-huh.
it's kind of altered the relationship that he has with his father in a little way, which has been really good. Here, Hank and his wife Peggy have been away working in Saudi Arabia, as his wife Peggy keeps calling it, where they were working for
Hmm.
his propane company on the sort of this big American themed lot. So he's sort of almost like shut off from the rest of the world a bit. So he's come back, and he's struggling to adjust to all the different changes, everything that's happened in the intervening time. So
Uh-huh.
you've got there, he's encountering Ubers for the first time. He's giving the Uber driver 4 stars, because it gives them something to aim for, and
Hmm.
he's dealing with all gender bathrooms and overcomplicated driving routes and so forth. And I think what I really loved about it is that the approach is satirizing these subjects, these modern day subjects, but it's doing so in a really gentle way that's kind of thoughtful, and it's never really judgmental, which I
Hmm.
found really refreshing. And it's such a nice change to see while we're laughing at these kind of situations. We're not kind of laughing at them. We're not laughing at these people, and I really like that. And it's kind of the heart of this show. It's always been a very full of heart show. But there's still like some of the characters haven't changed. Dale, his neighbor, I think was is a really great character. He's always been a big conspiracy theorist, and of course
Hmm.
nowadays with QAnon, a lot of his views are now mainstream, which is a great little twist. And he's enjoying his moment in the spotlight. So much so that he runs for mayor. But then, because he's such an election conspiracy theorist, he removed himself from office because he doesn't believe the results of his own election, which which is fantastic. And yeah, so King of the Hill. If you watched it before, I think you'll be glad to know that it's back to its usual stuff, but with a kind of a slightly updated theme, which I think works really well. And I was smiling a lot through a lot of it, and and laughing as well. So a real comfort watch, I think. So my final pick is I think one of the funniest shows on Apple TV Plus, which I don't think really gets enough recognition, probably for being so. And that's Platonic, starring Rose Byrne and Seth Rogen, who's fresh off the success of The Studio, also on Apple TV Plus. They play old best friends who have sort of rekindled their friendship after many years of not having much contact. And he's kind of a directionless guy who owns like a brewery, and she's feeling trapped in sort of a family with 3 kids and no career. She's happy in her marriage and her family, but she feels like she's not really achieving much in life. And so they kind of team up mainly in the first season. This is the second season, and get up to all kinds of shenanigans, shall we say. It's all very low stakes. They're often kind of running around, getting in trouble, or being drunk or stoned sometimes, and falling through glass plate windows. And I think, but what really works is that there's some great dialogue, and the chemistry between these 2 leads is just undeniable. They are such great people to watch on screen. And I've just been sat down watching these and just laughing hard at their just idiotic, stupid things that they get up to. A real kind of a release, I think, for anyone really at the end of a long day. If you just wanted to sit back and laugh, this is a really good show. So I can recommend it. Its second season, I think, starts this week on Apple TV Plus.
Okay.
So I recommend picking that up. So those are my 3 comedy picks. I've been laughing a lot this week, which has helped. So I can highly recommend any of those.
Yeah, those are great picks. I have not watched King of the Hill, but I have watched the first season of Platonic, and I have watched The Naked Gun. I have not seen the new one, but yeah, it sounds really nice. Let me dive into my pick. I am going to recommend the Patreon from our good friend and friend of the show, Brendon Bigley, Wavelengths. Brendon left his job at Marvel not that long ago, and Wavelengths has become his full-time job. So he's got a bunch of stuff going on. There's like all kinds of free content on both on his website and on YouTube. But people who join his Patreon, will get to extras, basically. And I should mention, too, that Wavelengths is not only the name of the website, but it's also the name of his podcast, where he interviews someone in the video game industry every week, and they talk about the news and what's going on in the industry, which his first guest is Chris Plant, who's the former EIC editor-in-chief of Polygon, who is also on some other podcasts like the Besties. Really good conversation with Chris about kind of striking out on his own, because Chris is doing that as well, just like Brendon has done. And what's cool, if you can dive into Brendon's stuff very easily by just going to the website and listening to the podcast. All that stuff is free. But if you really like it, you can go ahead and join the Patreon, which is $5 a month, which gets you a video version of the Wavelengths podcast when they do video, which Brendon says they'll be doing whenever the guests are comfortable with doing video, like our good friend Jonathan here, who was comfortable with coming on video with me for the first time. And besides that, he's also doing something called Signal Check, where he's going to be diving into video games, both old and new, and sharing his experiences with those, which is pretty cool, as well as giving patrons early access to longer form stuff like his video review of Metroid Fusion recently. And he's also going to do stuff like some Twitch streams and then house those streams once they're finished permanently for Patreon subscribers only. So they'll be available long term, even if you don't have time to tune in for the live stream. So highly recommend checking out Brendon's stuff. He does a lot of great work. We're very fortunate to have him as part of the MacStories family too, with NPC Next Portable Console. But he's got lots and lots more beyond that going on, including also into the Aether, which is another podcast he does about video games. So to wrap up, Jonathan, I wanted to mention we have an Unwind deal. I go in and look for these deals, and this is one of my favorite movies from 2024, which was Godzilla -1 minus color. And you might wonder, why do I want to watch a black and white movie? Well, they took this movie, which was originally color, and they didn't just desaturate it. What they did was they went in and they edited it to give it that kind of 50s vibe of an old movie, to make it more like the original Godzilla movies, which had kind of a documentary feeling to them that made them feel a little bit War of the Worlds, like this was actually happening in real life. And it really works well with this particular movie. The movie won some Oscars, I believe, for some of its visual effects.
Best visual effects Oscars, yeah.
Yeah, and the black and white version right now is $9.99, and it's 1/3 off, because it's usually like $15. So I'll have a link in the show notes. I picked this up when it was $15 myself, but you can get it for just 10. So check it out in the show notes and maybe add it to your movie collection.
Yeah, I can recommend that film. Brilliant film.
All right. Very good. Very good. Well, that's it for today's episode of MacStories Unwind. I want to thank Jonathan Reed for joining me. Thank you, Jonathan.
My pleasure.
And also, you can find both of us over on MacStories.net and Club MacStories, which is club.macstories.net. And of course, you can find us on social media. Just look up our names, search for us. It's a pretty easy thing to do. You'll find us in all the usual places. I will talk to you later, Jonathan.
Talk to you later, John.